Hi, welcome back. We're going to talk about licensing today. I'm doing it from the living room. Thought a change of scenery might be nice. You can see the winter here in Massachusetts. I have 10 minutes to talk about licensing, so I'm going to set my watch here. Hold on. There we go. And I want to apologize in advance if I rub my eyes or sneeze or something. I'm fighting a cold, sniffing, like that. Anyways, why would you license? Well, if you remember what we talked about in the previous sessions, and you remember that synergy tape view graph we saw, you're going to license when you don't have all the necessary capabilities to get a product to market. Otherwise, you would keep all the revenue for yourself. It doesn't make sense to divide it up. Another way of looking at this is you're licensing because you want to spread the risk out. Now, what kinds of risks are we talking about? Typically, we talk about three kinds of risks. One risk is technical risk. Technical risk is like a step function. Over time, it goes down as the technology gets more mature. We solve problems, it goes down. We're more certain we'll get to the outcome. We worry less about additional costs or delays. Now, when we're solving technical risk, because of the nature of it, we can throw money at it. In other words, I do my research, it either works or it doesn't. If it doesn't work, I throw another slug of money, and it works or it doesn't, I throw another slug of money, and sooner or later I say it's going to work or it's not going to work, and I get to the market or I abandon the project. Firm-specific risk is the next kind of risk. Firm-specific risk has to do with do you have the necessary capabilities in your organization to take this to market? If you're familiar with Porter's value chain, this is having the ability to move through all the value chain functions. So, for example, I'm doing my research, the research works, and I solve that problem, I do my product development, I solve those problems, I go through manufacturing, I solve those problems, and sooner or later I hit the market. If I hit a glitch somewhere along the lines, typically, I know how to solve these. I throw some money at it. If it doesn't work, I fire the people doing it, hire new people, solve the problem, move forward, move forward. It's a step function again, and I can pretty clearly calculate what's going on there. Market risk is a little different. It's like a probability distribution. It's an electron wave. I don't control everything in market risk. Why? Because it has to do with large-scale social forces. It has to do with what competitors do. All sorts of things. A natural disaster can affect market risk, as we saw with Hurricane Katrina down in New Orleans. If you were selling down there, boop, yeah, nobody's buying. They've all left town because it's flooded out. Anyways, in that case, all I can do is talk about a probability distribution. So I have these kind of risks that are going on. I'll give you one example in technical risk. I'm moving forward in a university. I'm developing a new way of fighting a disease, and I discover if I bind certain molecules to the surface of a cell, I can block the receptors where the virus is attached to the cell. Let's say it that way. And I do my research and I figure out a way to bind certain molecules to block these receptors in a beneficial way. My animal trials work. At this point, I get ready to license it. Why? Because I'm in a university. I do research. I don't do product development. I don't know how to scale things up. There's a whole series of technical capabilities associated with making these things in bulk, which I don't know. There are also, by the way, a whole series of firm-specific capabilities, which I don't know. So it makes sense to license it. And in that situation, because I'm a university person, there's also a whole infrastructure and set of things associated with marketing pharmaceuticals, which I don't know. So it makes a lot of sense to pass it off and to license it. Now, from the licensee standpoint, it's a little bit different. From the licensee standpoint, they're sitting there saying, look, I've got some product in the marketplace and I'm making some money. Let's call that money X. You should see this show up on your screen. Now, I have some costs associated with making that product. So X minus C, my cost, should be greater than 0, and how great it has to be depends on what's called the hurdle rate, or my profit margin that I'm trying to maintain. You come to me with a technology, and you say, I can make it easier for you to manufacture this. It's a process technology. That means I'm going to have to pay you a fee. We'll call that fee F. Now my formula looks like X minus C plus F is greater than 0. Of course, C may go down my existing costs may go down because I've licensed in your technology, so I'm better off that way. The other way that I can benefit is because of the risk, because there is a risk to this, and there's a risk in manufacturing that something will go wrong. And if I bring your technology in, ideally not only do my costs go down, but also my risk will go down, so we have to put an R in front of that. If we look at a product technology, if it's a product enhancement, I'm making X already, but if I bring a new feature into my product or a new aspect of it, the Y, let's say it's my eye drops here, and I bring my, these are standard eye drops, and I put a new feature in so you don't have to put them in every couple of hours, they last for a week. That new feature makes those more valuable, so now my revenue is X plus Y, and again, there may be a risk associated with selling in the marketplace, and if this feature makes them exceptionally more desirable, that risk should go down, so we need an R there too. We have a different risk factor there. Now, the X in the C are my existing costs. Y and F are different. Those are new. That's the value of the technology. It's either the value from product sales or from improving my manufacturing. And the other way that I need to think about this is I have to realize there's a time value to money, that these, I'm going to make my revenues or incur my costs over some period of time, and by affecting the risk, I also affect the discounting so that I can be more certain of realizing those revenues. It's always the same amount of revenues. The question is, how certain am I at realizing them or not? Okay. Let's look at what happens now and why a licensing deal happens. Let's say I have a product. Let's say it's software. This is a piece of Microsoft software. Or eye drops. Here's a piece of somebody's eye drops. There's an old joke, by the way, about Microsoft software among lawyers. States, they have adopted something called the Uniform Commercial Code. Under the Uniform Commercial Code, there's an implied warranty of merchantability, which means that if you buy it, it's supposed to perform the way that a normal person would expect something to perform. Why do you license software rather than buying it outright? You license it because by licensing it, you can share the risk with the person who buys it. That's why you have to sign the EULA, the End User Licensing Agreement. If you read it closely, it says, I'm taking the risk on that this thing won't work. So when your computer crashes, you can't go back and sue Microsoft. Now, it's not just Microsoft. Most software goes through upgrades and improvements and so on. I don't want to be taken as knocking Microsoft. It's just a joke. Anyways, to go back to where we were, notice that when we're licensing something, it's always somewhat immature. It may be immature. The technology, from this standpoint, our technology development, has a certain risk in it, and we're passing part of that risk to the licensee from the licensor. It may be to adapt it for a new marketplace. It may be to finish the development. It may be one of those bail before you fail situations, whatever, but there's something immature going on, and so we're taking an option. And our option is to license the technology rather than to finish the development ourselves. What does that mean from the standpoint of control? Well, from the standpoint of control, what it means is that I have to give away some of my control so the other person, the other party, my licensee, can exploit this technology and monetize it. So I'm going to have to give up some control over use, the make, buy, sell, even if I limit it, as we've discussed before. And I also have to transfer some knowledge and know-how to them, unless it is so obvious what's going on that there really is not, there's no stickiness in the knowledge at all, which is to say there's nothing that's not documented that you need to know in order to implement this technology.